All right, this is the Heartbeat Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me, so feedback is immensely important. And I appreciate the listeners out there who have done so. And also, I have a Shopify link, and I do make custom-made tumblers and t-shirts. If you're interested, check that on out. All right, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Speaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. Deezer, just to name a few. All right, this episode is going to center around the fan theories of The Office. Here we go. All right, so before I get into the bulks about different fan theories of The Office is quite interesting. So, it went into... Now, Ricky Gervais, originally created The Office. And so it's quite interesting. And then, prevalent in the times in which we're living in today, is very eloquently said when... the actor who the beloved persona of Mr. Bean has said about the importance of free speech, because if that is not if that's in jeopardy here, what kind of it's just there's no hope in sight, because people can't honestly say anything without fear of being offending, or fear of being, in the case of the UK, of being imprisoned for just speaking your mind with it. It's insane. And so, people, Americans, are so privileged in the right of that, because the people who do not understand these things, who are fighting against it here, on American soil, and saying that, if you disagree with me, it's hate speech and you're bigoted or you're racist, that's the most asinine bullcrap sort of tactic that you can have. So you're essentially telling me that you have the mentality of a toddler. You can't understand or grasp the notion that people have other various opinions, and you can't have the respect of that, which is quite funny, because most of the time people who say they're so tolerant, they actually are not. So getting back to it here, Ricky Gervais making a show like this was very, 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 very prevalent to the aspects of how important it is to keep comedy intact, and not to just make it, this organic appreciation of what other people can put to the table when it comes to comedy here. Again, not everybody comedy is very subjective. Not everybody thinks everything is, goes with the saying of subjectivity. Not everybody thinks the same, which is good. But here we go with Ricky Gervais here. So, he has said that, which is really interesting. So, from what I understand, and I've said this before on Sundays I post content for you want to extended format, be a subscriber to that. On Sundays I post content about things and my thoughts, uncensored thoughts and stuff. And check it on out. I'll have the link for that if you're interested in being a subscriber. All right, so he said that he was a musician in the 80s, which is quite interesting because the aspects of that was really, especially when you get into new wave and British pop and that synthesized pop, oh my God, that just went like wildfire how popular all these bands that were coming out at the time in the 80s. And he said he was very honest about the aspects, but funny, humorous at the same time, which is very refreshing about the aspects of humor. Most of the time, it's centered around the aspects of talking about very uncomfortable, subject matters, and trying to make commentary in a way that is sort of easier, but depending on the audience, for them to start thinking about it or, get the conversation going about it. And so he said, I got fat and I had to come to terms and just take a job. And so he made it clear about that. And he just said, well, it's quite funny with the aspects of what goes on in an office, which is very interesting. A lot of people can relate to that, even if you had different various aspects of, you have different various aspects of our office life, versus, working at home versus different sectors there are to work. Everybody can relate to that. And that's quite unique and telling the aspects of being in an office. Most of the time, people have various opinions, and when it, hold on, sweetheart, and then when it comes to those various opinions, you had to walk on eggshells because, again, you don't want to offend people. And then the uniqueness of British comedy is most of the time they just go, they have the opportunity to do it, they just go and say things to the next, they take it to the next level and just, no, not right now, baby. And they take things to, hey, wait until mommy finishes, okay? I'll be right there, baby. You gotta listen to me, okay? And they just, they say what they mean. They just upfront about it. And so that's the difference between the original content with the British version versus the American version. Most of the time, and a lot of times, I think it was really at its height, really good when it was Steve Carell on there, because Steve Carell is really good in the aspects of making the uncomfortable, merging those things together and finding humor in it being uncomfortable. But most of the time, especially with the story plot of Jim and Pam, it was something that, of a love story to craft out the aspects of the underlying overtones of the stark difference between the two, which in the British version, the Jim and Pam characters, so to speak, are not in any way, shape, or form the same. So, the essential Pam character in the UK, the British version, she is a cesspool, man. She is just takes what she can get, and she knows that, and she uses to her advantage, and she just is relentless with it. And then to the point of where, eventually catches up to her. And then the Jim character, he takes a different route, but he doesn't, he just comes to terms and just moves on and just has a different life then. But you can see those overtones if you or if you are quite interested in knowing the original content, because the way that things go between Pam and Jim is quite odd, because most of the time Pam is really manipulating the aspects of how things flow and go in their own relationship, to where it's pretty awkward. There are fan theories that says otherwise about that and the disposition of their relationship. That she actually, care about Pam. Does Pam actually care about Jim, and that she's, has, I guess, maybe narcissistic or sociopathic tendencies about that. And so, also the stark difference between the Truman Show and The Office. Now it's quite different with the Truman Show, because he was just in this unawarely, and when he found out, what to make of that. But these people were consented, and they knew what was happening. And then in the aspects of when they find out that their lives are really all out there, what to make of that when you've already consented to something. So this goes to the outliers about reality television and how people feel in their disposition about that, and culture. All right, so with all this said, I'm going to get into the facts about the fan theories that go into The Office. Here we go. Okay, so of course sources will be provided for you. All right, so it says here. Okay. All right. It's quite a bit of information I found about everything. You know what? I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to work backwards, and then I'm going to get into the AI generated response. Okay, so first I'm going to go into a 12 compelling facts, fan theories exactly, from Mental Floss. So it says mind-bending shows like Lost and Westworld bring out the conspiracy theorists in all of us. But even less cerebral shows have a way of inspiring some absolutely benders. So, The Office was a sitcom that ran on NBC for about 8 years. But the way some of its fans talk on Reddit, you'd think it was a piece of science fiction. Here are 12 of the wildest theories about it says, on top of everything it says, and I'll get into the aspects of, and I was quite interested about that. I was like, what the heck is alcohol, which is a random poisoning, and the Loch Ness Monster and beyond. All right, so it starts out by saying this. So Michael Scott is a secret genius. So what does that entail? It says one of the most enduring fan theories is that Michael Scott, noted idiot and jerk, is actually a brilliant businessman. A lot of people have suggested that Michael is putting on an act the whole time, which kind of makes a lot of sense. So there is an episode where Michael is talking to Jim, and this is when he sent off. He's trying to either Michael is trying to recruit new business to the office, and so Michael asks Jim to be in charge while he's gone. And so it just so happens that it's someone's birthday, either Kelly or somebody's birthday, or he's going around and asking and everything. And they're saying all these things. Oh, I want this, I want that, I want that. And then it comes to the formality of the aspects of which we've all been in situations like that, where the ethical disposition that the employee and the boss has with with everyone. So the buddy boss versus the stern boss versus where's the in between all of these things. And so Jim doesn't know what to do. It's just really like, by the end of the day, he's like, I don't care. Do whatever the heck you want. You just arguing over these asinine things. Who cares? So Michael comes in and he's sitting down. He's talking to him. And he says, he makes a joke. And they both try to break that. Michael's trying to break the ice. And he explains the way that he is with these people. He said, I tried that tactic before. But he says that, I try to make it light because the ease the tension of the day-to-day grind and he's pretty much going back to the emphasis of he's trying to make a pleasant work environment, which also goes to an extra layer to his own personal life of seeing these people as a surrogate family, or that the bond that he never really had. He lost, or he just didn't have that sense of family in his own personal life. And he makes that very abundantly clear throughout this series when he was in the series. And I'll get to that later on. But yeah, I can see that because there's gotta be something more to it than, why would they keep him on? Even though, it's a fictional comedy, there's still some layer of some rationality behind it, when these thought processes go into making these series. So, I could see that, what they're saying here. All right, so it says, clients and bosses underestimate him so that he can manipulate them so he manipulates so he can get whatever he wants, essentially. So Reddit points to the season 2 episode, The Client, where one example is the episode where Jan Levinson and Michael have a very important meeting. Michael moves from the Radisson to Chili's. He's completely blowing it from Janek's perspective, coming off as an unprofessional clown for the VIP client, which is Tim Meadows. And that's a quite funny episode, by the way. So, but Michael's approach loosens the guy up, allowing him to swiftly close the deal. There are a few other examples of Michael's possible genius, or could this just be dumb luck? Jim Halpert wrote the whole show, which just makes a lot of sense with this theory. Because, Jim does a lot of things that doesn't make any sense as a, fireable offense. And, it's all written off. So that's got to be, again, with this fan theory, trying to explain that plot hole there. What is that? So from season 1, fans were rooting for Jim Halpert to win over Pam Beasley and get out of the paper business. But one fan theory suggests that Dunder Mifflin's slacker salesman manipulated us all. Reddit user Jan Yuster thanks Jim. Jim actually wrote the show, which is why he comes off as the hero. And the crowd and the co-workers he doesn't like, ergo, the white shrew, seems so annoying. Meanwhile, his boss, Michael, who never punishes Jim for his pranks for being plain lazy, is written as a buffoon. Okay, number 3, it says Kevin Malone was embezzling from the company. Kevin Malone isn't the sharpest employee in Dunder Mifflin. He shreds his own credit cards by accident and can't transfer a call to save his life. In one especially mean prank, Dwight convinces a new HR executive, Holly Flank, that Kevin is mentally challenged. Like the Michael Scott theory, some fans believe Kevin was just pretending to be dumb. In this case, so that one could notice so no one would notice that he is actually embezzling money from the company. Which, I can see that theory. So, towards the end of the series, Dwight becomes in charge, and he takes over, and he either buys out and the building, and so that's why he is the new, essentially, I guess, chairperson or what have you of the company. And so Dwight does a prank on him, and he does it in a clever way to get him into paying attention to what he needs to do. And then he writes, from what I remember, he writes like, yeah, "You're fired" on the cake or something like that, essentially. And so he takes it the way you would expect him to take it, and then it cuts to deeper on into the series, and you see that Kevin is actually the owner of a bar. So that's a plot hole there. Say, how can you where's the transformation in between? There's got to be something more to him than just this bumbling oath. And so that, I think that's probably where those theories lie within, this person thinking that if they went on to the latter part of the series. All right, so it says Kevin was just pretending to be dumb in this case so that no one would notice that he was embezzling. So it would explain how he was able to buy a bar, say you see, like I'm saying, and why he makes a weird comment about insider trading. So I had Martin explain to me 3 times what he got arrested for, because it sounds an awful like what I do here every day. So it says all the employees are suffering from random poisoning. It says anyone who has watched all the seasons of The Office has probably noticed that the characters get a little bit strange as the series goes along. So there's a theory that explains this. It says that, and it says this, excuse me. It says there's a running joke on the show that The Office is due for random testing. But because Toby Flenderson is always the one bringing it up, it's dismissed. So according to one theory, Toby was right, and the entire staff has slowly been developing brain cancer. So eventually the illness begins to alter their personalities, causing them to act in demented and strange ways. It's also why Michael is way more mature in the series finale. Moving to Colorado with Holly, it did wonders for the random poison brain. So once he was out of the toxic office, he could finally grow up. Which is, I guess they're trying to say that it's a metaphor, which doesn't, I guess that's what they're talking about. That I guess they're saying metaphorically. It's a little bit confusing between the language in which this fan theory is written. But all of you give comments. Feel free to. So, Andy Bernard ruined his brain with alcohol horse. Now, what is this exactly? What is this term? I actually took the time to look this up. So, alcohol horse, what is the meaning? So, it says this. So, it says horses can consume beer, and it is a traditional practice in some equestrian circles, particularly for post-exercise recovery or as a treat. Many horses enjoy the taste of beer, likely due to its ingredients like barley and hops, which, makes a lot of sense. So, which are similar to grains in their regular feed. Horses have a unique digestive system that allows them to process alcohol efficiently. They produce a liver enzyme called alcohol diuresis, which rapidly converts alcohol into carbohydrates for energy, making it difficult for them to become intoxicated. So this high metabolic rate means a horse could need to consume very large amounts of beer to experience any significant effect. Now, let's go back to this theory. It says, I read it has piggybacked off a random theory to explain Andy Bernard's behavior, which is probably the most extravagant of the bunch, or, which needly. So, yeah. So while Andy could be suffering from random poisoning, one theory suggests that his brain damage is more directly the result of faithful drink. In the season 7 episode viewing party, Andy is having a hard time dealing with his ex Aaron Hannian's new relationship with Gabe Lewis. He's processing all of this while he's in Gabe's room, where he finds a mysterious container. So temp Ryan Howard tells him it's full of powdered seahorse, which gives people superhuman strength. So Andy dumps it in the wine and downs it all. The combination of the alcohol and the seahorse, concoction here, which gives people he downs it in. The combination of all this, Andy is permanently messed up. If this theory weren't crazy enough, it also comes with a ridiculous name, which is called, as I was telling you, this real event that happens, alcohol horse. So Toby is the Scranton Strangler. And yeah, I heard this theory before. And it's also interesting that they say, this also connects to the theory that goes on a little bit further down, that says that the Parks and Recreation and Dexter and all of those shows are in the same universe. So that on top of this, there's also a fan theory that says that the character Anne, which she is in Karen, is in her character. Karen is also in the office. So they say that Karen's character actually testified against Toby, which is, apparently he was the Boston, the Scranton Strangler. And because of this, she had to go into witness protection. And the fact that she went into witness protection explains why her character and her new assumed name, Anne, is in Park and Recreation. You're seeing her in witness protection, and that's the next phase in her life, which, it's kind of difficult about that fan theory, because you see in The Office that she is head of another branch, and she's very happy, and she's very successful, and she's married, and she also has a baby on the way. So that's also something to consider too. All right, so let's get into this fan theory. It says fans might like the Michael theory, but they also love the idea that HR's milquetoast Toby is the Scranton Strangler. Seriously, there is an entire videos laying out the claims, and it's also if you're interested, it's also a YouTube video in Mental Floss if you want to check it out. So for starters, he wasn't at work when everyone watched the police chase and then apprehended the Scranton Strangler. He didn't even show up for the Glee party later that day. Then he makes it onto the jury, where he can help put the other guy behind bars. So there's a theory that says the office is actually hell. No one really really hear this one out. So a bunch of people sincerely believe that the Scranton office is hell. Why is this? So, that it didn't become a hellscape until after one key episode, Stress Relief. It is a 2-parter from season 5. Says in the first part, Stanley has a heart attack in the middle of a safety drill. He survives and soon returns to work. But what if Stanley really died that day? So the theory goes into that Stanley's heart attack kills him and he is sent straight to hell. He did have all those affairs, after all, it says. So Stanley hated his work more than anyone. So for him, hell is the office. But because this is hell, all the co-workers are there. personalities or characters are embellished, and our versions of themselves are more annoying than and more cartoonish. All right, so it says Bob Vance just wanted some free air ads. It's impossible to forget where Bob Vance works because he repeats the name of his business every time he is introducing himself. So popular theory says that Bob isn't selling the service to the people he meets on screen, but he is just promoting his company and people to watch the documentary. It's a way of scoring free ads, and even if he doesn't seem like a strange, seems so strange to Phyllis's co-worker. That's the reason. Dwight thinks everyone on TV is real. So Dwight Schrute frequently struggles to separate fiction from reality. Here's a quick list of examples. As documented by Timus Tim, he thinks he can raise and lower his cholesterol at will. He thinks Jim might be turned into a vampire, and that his neighbor's dog is a werewolf. And so again, excuse me, I'll be right back. It's quite interesting, but also I think, from my point of view, on this, to add on to this theory, it's one of those things where they're making commentary about people who are gullible, and the aspects of Gareth is essentially the Dwight Schrute character in the UK, their original version of The Office, and Gareth has a darker sense of humor. But he he has a very structured military background from what I remember about. And so the way that his disposition that he has with Ricky Gervais and his characters is quite different. And I think they were trying to sort of Americanize the relationship that they had, to translate that into like he's gullible, but he's self-reliant at the same time, as a means to explain why he has his disposition towards Michael. All right, so the camera crew kept the Scranton branch open. So Dunder Mifflin is never the most financially stable company, even before Cyber buys it out. So Michael's bosses are constantly warning him about layoffs or branch shutdowns and begging him to stop spending large amounts of money on holiday parties. So based on a wider company problems and Michael's frequent mistakes, the Scranton branch should have been shut down during the first episode. So how does it survive for so long? One Redditor uses this theory. It says that the camera crew kept them in business, sensing that the office antics could make for great television. All right, so the show exists in the same universe as Parks and Recreation and Dexter. There's a pretty convincing case that The Office is happening at the same time as Parks and Recreation and as also Dexter. And it all comes down to the office supplies. In season 6, a printer company called Sabre buys out Dunder Mifflin. A few Sabre employees became recruiting characters like Joe Bennett, Kathy Bates, and Gabe Lewis, Jack Woods. And the Scranton office suddenly has to drink out of metal water bottles as per company policy. Otherwise, not much changes. But bottles as per company, but Sabre is important because its products have appeared on other shows. Eagle Eye viewers have spotted Sabre printers on Parks and Recreation and even in Dexter. But some people think that the connections run much deeper. Here's they think that it's like some kind of crossover involving Creed and the Parks and Recreation cult. Creed is trying to catch the Loch Ness Monster. Loch Ness Monster. Excuse me. All right, so this is the last one. So Creed is the strangest man at Dunder Mifflin, which is the subject of many theories. But by far the best one is that he is trying to catch Nessie. And the seminar, Creed gives a speech about the Loch Ness Monster, and which you can, it's not available anymore. But so it says that where he describes the creature and mentions the totally fake reward for its capture as the riches in Scotland. And that's quite interesting. So I am going to pull up and talk about the basis from the AI generated response that I have found about theories of The Office. All right, so here we go. All right, so it says several fan theories about The Office have gained significant traction among viewers, offering alternate explanations for characters beyond the plot points. One prominent theory suggests that Michael Scott intends his life for Toby Flanderson stems from Michael's own unresolved issues with his father. And he makes that very prevalent in the aspects of how his mother was she never really had a relationship with him. He was just there because, she's like, oh, okay, I guess I have to take care of this kid. But his father was never really present, and that was very clear, and it was very clear about how he was missing out on that disposition in his own life. And I think that also that's another commentary about the aspects of pretty much how I would say from the American work office life, how making commentary about that was trending and more popular for people to be more engaged personally and sort of connected, bond with their co-workers, to where maybe they were making some sort of commentary about that, where the workplace is becoming more interpersonal and so to speak. So here we go. So one prominent theory suggests that Michael Scott, and like I was saying, and who left the family, making Toby a divorced father. So a symbol of Michael's deepest fears about family abandonment. This theory is supported by Michael's emotional outburst during a counseling session with Toby, where he discusses his father's absence. Another widely discussed theory points that Jim Halpert may have written the show himself, as I said. And then there's also, let me say this too. This is quite a different level of a fan theory about Creed Bratton. So it says the identity of Creed Bratton has also been the subject of speculation. Fan theorized that Creed is not actually his real name, pointing to an episode where he displays a passport listing his name as William Charles Snyder. The theory suggests that Creed killed the original William Snyder and took his identity, a claim bolstered by Creed's own statements about a previous man named Creed Bratton who disappears after stealing from him. So the possibility that Roy cheated on Pam with Angela is another popular theory. So as I was finding out other fan theories about different things, I had also stumbled upon this to add on to this layer about Pam. So it says that Pam, in actuality, that she might have possibly had an affair with the, I guess the director, you can say, of the documentary. Because there's a scene that goes on towards the latter part of the series where they all find out more intimate details about situations in which these characters were recorded, which they had no idea they were recording that. And they were afraid for those things to come out. And so soon after Pam finds out all about this, she goes to the director's home, and you see her in his home talking to him. So that's a fan theory that is alleging that she had a relationship with him. And it also says, pinpoints to the aspects as I was mentioning earlier in the show, when I was saying that the British version is very different, where the Pam, as you want to say, character that she is based on is, just a dirtbag. And she just has no sense of morality. She just takes what she can get until it's next thing she can take, and she takes and takes and takes. And I think they're trying to, on the surface, relay that into the Americanized version, but that's just one perspective I have about it. All right, so it says that, hold on. I'm skipping. I say the possibility that Roy cheated on Pam with Angela is another popular theory supported by subtle glances between the two during casino night. So it says Angela's flustered reaction when Roy offers her a drink and cocktails. And this theory is further fueled by Angela's known history of multiple affairs and her resentment towards Pam. So a darker theory proposes that the entire staff of Dunder Mifflin Scranton suffers from random poisoning. And this also goes back into the aspects of Michael's maturity as he moves to Colorado, removing from the toxic environment. Again, this is rehashing about that. It seems like, again, they're trying to relay actually being poisoned, physically being poisoned, to the metaphorical toxic work environment, which it seems like they're merging those two theories together here. All right, so finally, the idea of the documentary crew was essential to keeping Scranton branches available, and I'm going to add on to that. So that makes a whole lot of sense, and to the aspects that this documentary is buying the paper and just funneling along, because it goes on to the aspects of pseudo reality and making, to me, from my point of view about it, of how, because this was the second wave, I would say, maybe when it first started, because it's really coming out of the main unit of the British comedy. But, at the time when a show like that was coming along in the UK, and then, it relaying in America, for the most part, which is still prevalent today, reality shows were everywhere. And then before it was more noticed that and then people started to come out and tell that reality shows aren't really all that real. It makes a whole lot of sense. Like, where is this coming from? The aspects of how these characters, or how these story plots are going along in these reality shows, because it's got to be some sort of structured script or something that is not reality within it. And so it makes a whole lot of sense for this documentary crew to have an added investment to do something like that, because they need to continue along their own narratives in order to make this documentary happen. All right, so with that said, this reaches the end, and of course, commentary is greatly appreciated. All right, tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.